watch a video by an individual by the name Daniel Fernandez, who did a stand-up comedy bit called Shadows. Funny guy, and he explains how he deals with anxiety. So without further ado, and then we're going to read an article too to see how we can better understand generalized anxiety disorder. Here we go.
Now, clap your hands if you've ever had to deal with a mental illness, anxiety, or depression. Good, good. You know the Indian comedy scene has evolved when we have moved from saying stuff like clap your hands if you're Gujarati. To clap your hands if you have a mental illness. Come a long way. And the thing is, I didn't know much about mental illness. Like I knew it existed, but I was very ignorant about it. Like people would say stuff to me, like, "Oh, he's depressed," and I'd be like, "Why is his Wi-Fi not working?" It's pretty close, right? Like I didn't understand. I was damn ignorant, and then I got diagnosed. And to be really honest, when I got the news, part of me was kind of happy because now I finally have a thing. Do you know how hard it is to socialize these days? Everybody has a thing. You know what I mean, right? Like a quirk that they're all bonding over. Like, I have never had a thing. I used to always feel left out. Yeah, it's hard being perfect. You know what I mean, right? You go to a party, you meet people, they're like, "Hi, I'm allergic to shellfish. Please don't give me shellfish." And you're like, "Yes, my friend, he's allergic to shellfish. You know, don't give him any shellfish." Or you meet somebody else and you'll be like, "Oh, I have vertigo. I'm afraid of heights." And you're like, "Yes, my friend, she has vertigo. She's afraid of heights." Or you'll meet somebody else and you'll be like, "Hi, I'm vegan." And you just go, "This person is not my friend." So the thing is, I had to figure out what was going on with me, okay? Because this is not an illness where you just pop a couple of pills and you're okay in a week, you know? This thing stays with you, right? So I had to do a lot of reading up and I spoke to a lot of professionals. And it turns out that besides a lot of external factors in your life, it mostly has to do with serotonin. Yeah, serotonin is a 9-letter word, which when played in Scrabble is a guaranteed triple word score. Scrabble is a game played by people who know how to spell, but just want to show off. Now, serotonin is also a chemical that is produced by your body, right? And this chemical is responsible for regulating your moods and your emotions. So if your serotonin levels are healthy, then your brain is healthy and your mind is your best friend. But if your serotonin levels are messed up, then you could end up having a mental illness like anxiety or depression. And then your mind becomes your worst enemy. And trust me when I say this, nothing is scarier than having to fight your own mind.
Nothing is scarier than having to fight your own mind. Was that guy? He had a few funny jokes in there. I was laughing a bit. Yeah, his name is Daniel Fernandez. If you want to look him up on YouTube, I'll go ahead and leave the link in the description as well. And his stand-up show was called Shadows. This used to be called Mental Minute. Take a mental minute. It was generally geared toward mental illnesses, and it's still going to be that. But we decided to change the name up a little bit, and it's called "Let's Introspect." Let's look inward and see, what is it that is about us that is good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, and whatever it is that can be fixed, let's go ahead and try to fix it. And whatever it is us, let's accept it, be empowered by it, be emboldened by it, and as long as it's healthy, pursue it to your fullest extent. So let's read this article that we have up here, and it's called "How to Break Anxiety," or "How to Break Anxiety Cycles and Overcome Worry." It is by Dr. Deborah R. I don't even want to try to pronounce that name, PhD. And it was written on March 24th of 2020. Generalized Anxiety Disorder, or GAD, is are in adults and youth is characterized by persistent excessive worry. If the problem started and ended with worry, it might not be such a big deal. Instead, people with GAD get bogged down as one worry leads to another and another. I mean, I understand that. Sometimes my mind starts to race, and there's different things that I need to get done, and I'm trying to multitask. I'm worrying about one thing so much that I'm not even giving full attention to all the things that need to be done because I'm trying to do them all at the same time. But if I just focus myself and try to focus on one thing at a time and give it 100% of my attention, the outcome always turns out for the better. Does it always work? Nope. Because again, the mind is a wonderful thing if you really start to break it down and think what it does and how it operates the body. It's amazing. God is wonderful. But let's continue to read. How and how an anxiety cycles begin. Worries are maintained for several reasons. Some reasons might persist because of biased thinking. This could involve an overestimation of the likelihood of a bad outcome or an exaggeration of how bad the bad outcome will be. I tend to do that too sometimes. Some worries are strengthened by negative thoughts about oneself, such as the belief that one would be unable to cope with the uncertainty or an undesirable outcome. So, right here, it really all has to do with wanting to be in control. Once we are able to realize what we have control over and what we don't have control over, then we are able to relieve some of that stress and anxiety, because the things that we can't control, we can just put them in that pile and move on to the things that we can. Worries also can persist because of how information in the environment is processed. A person with GAD may selectively tune into information that supports the worry and ignore evidence that refutes it. And memory can also be selective. Now, when worries persist because of how the information in the environment is processed, that's perspective. You know, if you are always consistently worried about something, and I'm talking to myself too, if I'm always consistently worried about something, I have to take a step back and see, okay, well, or ask somebody else, hey, what do you think about this? And get their perspective on the situation and match it or cross-examine it with mine, and then go with the better, situation, the better solution. That might not always be possible, so sometimes you might have to do that inwardly, and have the conversation with yourself and weigh the options. Not worry about them or not stress about them, but weigh the most plausible or the most practical solution to happen, not the most extravagant. Find the balance in the thought. Don't over exaggerate the situation. Stay in the moment. Let's continue to read. In some cases, people with anxiety problems have difficulty recalling data that is inconsistent with a particular worry. Lastly, worries can persist because of the ways to which they are responded. Individuals with untreated anxiety problems tend to respond to fears by trying to suppress the worry, seek reassurance that nothing bad will happen, or avoid situations that might trigger the fear. These strategies can make people feel terrible and reinforce the anxiety, thus creating a cycle. Once I was able to realize, things are going to happen. Life happens. The world turns. And it definitely doesn't turn around me. It's just going to continue to do what it does, and I must be able to go with the flow and not dwell on the negative and try to seek the positive in everything. Not being naive of what's going on, but trying not to allow what's happening to cause stress, anxiety, and worry, and all of that. Face your fears head on is the end thing, man. That's hard to do, but it's in us. It's in us, and the one reason why it's in me is because this is what I believe, the Word of God. You might not, but I do, and that's okay. We can have a difference of opinion in that area, but it is He that gives me strength to be able to process all these things. Because I'm like you, I stress out, I worry, I have anxiety. There's things that's always on my mind, mainly my kids, and most of you guys can understand that too. I kind of have a unique situation, but it's not that unique here in where I live, and maybe even you might know somebody in the same situation. But I think about my children a lot, and it does cause me a little bit of worry and anxiety. But I know that God has them in great hands, and that is a great relief for me. So let's get back to reading. Why break the cycle? Take, for example, the worry that your significant other is going to break up with you. This is an intrusive thought that is actually quite normal for a person to have. It might come out of the blue or in response to a specific situation. However, an however, an overly anxious person would ask, what's that word? Appraise. There we go. Had to sound it out. This thought as very meaningful. Review all the reasons why this thought might be true. Try to reduce the anxiety in short term, effectively strengthening it in the long term, and feel terrible. Thus, the belief becomes even more significant and is experienced more frequently and more honestly than in someone with an anxiety problem. To overcome anxiety, the vicious cycle needs to be broken. Let's continue to read. How to break the cycle. There are different ways that you may be able to approach an anxiety cycle and break it for better emotional wellness. Acceptance. This is the main one here. We have to, this is true. One way to break the cycle is to learn to accept that not every intrusive thought is signaling a legitimate reason to worry. Simply put, not every thought is true. Instead of trying to wrestle with the beliefs, acceptance based techniques involve identifying the thought, labeling it worry, judgment, for example, and being mindful of the moment that gives rise to the belief as well as the moment when it begins to recede from awareness. So take inventory. Ask yourself, why am I giving this situation so much of my energy? And once you are able to really think about it, you might find out, well, you know what, this thing ain't such a big deal. We make mountains out of molehills. Let's continue to read. Questioning. Another strategy can effectively break the link between biases in thinking of information processing and cognitive reconstructing this. This technique is cornerstone of treatment approach called cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive reconstructive offers a way to critically evaluate potential distorted thoughts like he's definitely going to break up with me or I cannot go out with him. This is then the situation where a girlfriend is in fear of being broken up with by her boyfriend, as you can have read earlier. by asking a series of questions about the belief that can encourage a more balanced view of the relevant facts. Cognitive reconstructing offers a way of critically evaluating potential thoughts. Now, that's over evaluating. He's definitely going to break up. I can't live. You can live without that dude. Once you really stop to think about it, I remember one time I was in a relationship, and I think this was one of my first girlfriends. And believe it or not, I was in my 20s. To be kind of frank, that I had relations with, and she broke up with me. I remember crying like a baby. And two ladies, two mothers from the church that I was living. I was actually living in this church in the apartment. Two mothers of the church said, "Boy, get up! You can live without that girl." And I swore up and down that I couldn't. But hey, I'm still alive today, and guess what? I'm married now to a beautiful woman and the love of my life. I don't know why I threw that in there. Just a little personal tidbit about myself. I don't really want to make this video too long, so let's read the next one here. Exposure. Finally, exposure is a tool that can break the cycle by eliminating reliance on ineffective anxiety reduction strategies. The basic concept of exposure is to lean into anxiety by confronting rather than avoiding. Anxiety provoking situations to learn by experience. Either that nothing terrible will happen, or that bad outcomes are manageable and might even have an upside. Going ahead and attack that thing. Like I said earlier, there is power within you once you know where your power comes from. For me, it is Jesus. I don't know what it is for you. If you don't have Jesus in you, want Jesus, let's talk about that too. But for me, it's Jesus. You have power to confront your fears. God has not given me the spirit of fear. So going ahead and live by that, or, like that's for me. Whatever works for you, let it work for you. But again, if you don't know who Jesus is, let's talk about that too. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to stop right now. I'll leave this article in the description for you guys. This has been Let's Introspect, formerly Mental Minute, or Take a Mental Minute. It's the same thing. But if you are going through a struggle right now, and you know or that you feel like you can't overcome it, this at the bottom of your screen here is the National Suicide Lifeline. This is for America. Wherever you are at, I'm sure there's something available for you. I'm reaching out to you. Before you do anything, call the number at the bottom of your screen, and a person will be on the line to be able to talk to you as long as you need to be talked with. And whatever services that you might need, they will be able to get in contact with emergency services for you, or can get you in contact with the crisis center in your area. So with that, I'm James. This is Let's Introspect. Maybe we'll see you again on the next one.